So basically what it is our school district it's in Belleville, Illinois, right across from St. Louis. But a company called Sequel, Youth and Family Services, has issued a proposal for us to have outsourced BD classrooms. We currently have integrated LD classrooms and other mental health services that are integrated for kids. We have autistic kids integrated in classrooms. Yep. They want to lease 2 classrooms for BD classes dedicated because we don't have those resources in our district. So there's a lot of questions flying around, and because the school board was not exactly transparent about this, a lot of parents are up in arms and are, quite frankly, they're scared. They think that there's going to be, they're worried about violence, they're worried about all kinds of issues with regard to having BD students in the same halls. Sequel has not done this before. This is a pilot program of sorts for them. So I thought I would reach out to companies that provide these kinds of services already and see basically how it's going for them.
Okay. Oh, okay. So more or less to say, if it worked for them, it could work for us.
Right, and to kind of ask the questions that parents have about how things would work. Well, if there's, do you call your organization SESI?
Yeah.
Okay. To see how SESI handles it, since you've already been doing this kind of program, and what we could expect, or maybe best practices that we could suggest, just so we have a better grasp of what's going on.
Okay. I currently only operate one in-district classroom. I have a lot of standalone schools. We're opening 2 more in-district classrooms as we speak right this school year. So I do know there's 2 other regional directors within our company that better know, because they've had long-standing in-district classrooms, in terms of, specific logistics. I could answer things as best I can just based upon the fact that, it's the newest model that we've been rolling out. I just wanted to pretty much, candidly tell you that we have been working through some of the growing pains ourselves, just because we haven't. I oversee our Connecticut, Missouri, Colorado, and Virginia schools. So we currently only have the model in Connecticut.
And that's fine. I think talking to you might even be better because, those growing pains that you mentioned, that's going to be what parents see first. If this gets approved. So it might be best to discuss like worst case scenarios than, what happens once you iron those out.
Well, yeah, and I mean, hopefully big picture. A lot of this is going to depend on the policies and procedures and protocols that your vendor would put into place and the level of management or collaboration that they would have with your administrator. So a lot of it is going to be dependent upon the model that you put into place.
Correct. And this will give us, speaking with you about this, it will give us a better idea of what to ask Sequel as far as those policies and procedures.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm really just, this is more of an exploratory phone call to kind of get a footing on what works and what doesn't.
Okay.
So, I guess I'll start with a general question, like what has worked and what hasn't. What were the things that you experienced as you started your program that were the ones that you were like, oh, this is not how it should run? Like what has been problematic for SESI so far?
I would say the most critical component is just having the actual building administrators aligned with the vision of the program, and what policies and procedures and protocols you would have in place for student behaviors, because we're also an out-of-district placement provider, so we have standalone schools, and so our policies and procedures in those may look very different than that of a self-contained public school classroom. So just sort of converging those 2 concepts, I think, would be probably where some of the logistics would become really critical to work out. What do you do when a student's going and roaming through the hallways or attempting to roam through the hallways of the school? What would be your protocols, to bring them back? Would, if they left the grounds, those sorts of things, just to make sure that everyone feels safe about their addition to the environment. So all of that would be critical to be worked out. I think additionally, aside from that, then what positive reinforcements and things that they can earn within the program. I know for our students, they're very motivated by rewards and privileges. So just working out their accessibility to both of those has been critical to the success of the program. And some of those accessibility things, I think what's great about having them be able to be in the public school is that we have been able to have students access certain classes during the school day. So they'll earn to be able to now transition back into an elective or a high interest area for the student, like gym or something of the sort. Even cafeteria time has been something that's a novelty for students that they're very motivated by. So I would say those types of experiences and outlining what the criteria would be for those or any other rewards and privileges, free time, reinforcers, anything like that. Additionally, the building administrators have to be aligned with any sort of consequences that are handed out from the program because, it's their consequences. So whether that's detention, suspensions, any of those sorts of things. Aside from that, we definitely met with all of the parents prior to the program, their student being enrolled in the program to do an overview of the program. We also made ourselves available to the staff and the parents of the public school students just to do sort of a Q&A about what we did and how we would go about running the program.
And was that, when you talk about coming to the parents in district who don't have kids with behavioral disorders, did you do that before the school board approved?
Yes.
Okay.
No, we it was already approved prior, but I thought you were going to say before the school year. We did it before we started the school year.
Okay.
But we were already approved prior to that.
What was the approval process like for you? Was it controversial, or did it go fairly smoothly?
No, it went fairly smoothly. The district saw it as being a need for their students and a service that they were providing, but weren't necessarily providing successfully for the students. And, with the laws of FACE, they wanted to contract out with somebody to run the classroom a little bit more successfully than they were able to. Mm-hmm. So they did some research and they called references, and then we had to submit a proposal, and that went to their school board. Now, they did know us from our reputation prior, having had standalone schools and other in-district classrooms in other parts of the country. So our first venture in doing this in Connecticut, they did call references of school districts that we had collaborated with within our standalone schools, as well as some of the references related to our other state in-district classrooms.
Okay.
And when all of those came back relatively favorable, and they moved forward. So that was sort of the process was not at all contentious. The school board, before they did vote, they did want to come visit the program and sort of meet with us, and they were all able to do that. We did an open house for them, but once they voted, then we were able to then do some outreach to the community at that point.
Okay. So one of the pragmatic day-to-day things parents are wondering about is what happens, how do you handle when students have to leave the classroom, go to the restroom? You made it sound like the cafeteria was more of a privilege than granted.
Yeah, our students actually ate in the classroom, so it stayed self-contained until they earned a certain behavioral level, and then they earned the other privileges outside of the classroom, but otherwise they stayed among the classroom. We had no more than 10 students, a teacher, and 2 paraprofessionals staffing the classroom. This year, we're adding the addition of a part-time social worker as well. So, because the school district supplied the social worker last year, and she felt a little stretched and so forth. So we're staffing going into this year with a part-time social worker of our own staff.
And is that? Do you think that's having the social worker? Is that a vital part of the team?
It did seem to be for the students to be able to access somebody throughout the day if they were having difficulty. And honestly, I think it helps keep the instruction flowing for the teacher so that it's not slowed down by him needing to step into that capacity. We're all trained in therapeutic techniques and verbal de-escalation, crisis intervention, and that sort of thing. But I think in not having a social worker readily accessible, sometimes instruction did suffer from not being able to have that in terms of just keeping up with the pace. We consistently use pacing guides within the district to keep the instruction on par for the students because, again, our goal is for them to start to access some classroom settings with their peers. So for them to keep up with that and the academic rigor really needed for the high school, because it was a high school classroom that we did this with first in Connecticut, we really needed to have the instruction keep going. So I do optimistically look forward to this year with the addition of the social worker.
And then hallway protocols. How do you handle students in the hallways?
We supervise our students at all times. We actually have a behavioral level system. It's very structured. So our students have to earn a certain level to even have rights to earn the privileges, like I was saying, with the cafeteria, but also additionally to even walk to the bathrooms. But there were certain bathrooms that were dedicated to our students, so they didn't use the same ones as the public school students either.
Oh.
So, but our staff escorted them to and from the bathroom.
So, okay, I'm going to give you a hypothetical. I know hypotheticals aren't the easiest to answer, but what if your school didn't have dedicated bathrooms for your students? How would SESI handle that?
I would say they're still going to get escorted at all times. So anytime our students are in the hallway, our staff are accompanying them, just for everyone's safety and appropriateness, honestly, as we're working with them on social skills and things of the sort. So our staff would constantly be with them. And we don't take any more than 1 to 2 students to the bathroom at a time anyway, dedicated bathroom or not. So I would just keep those numbers low so that the responsiveness of the staff were able to be on point.
I think that's what most parents are hoping to hear, but Sequel has not really been all that responsive to questions, although they have responded finally to me and are supposed to call me later. So you are helping me greatly figure out what questions to ask them. I appreciate this.
Yeah, no problem.
So what about, okay, there's a couple things I want to ask about. Sequel has had issues with using excessive restraint in some of its residential facilities, which, it's a totally different animal in terms of who they're serving there. But how does SESI handle restraint or seclusion with regard to the students?
Well, I think the most important thing is that the restraint and seclusion guidelines and protocols should be following the state law for that, which I know in Connecticut, ours is that we can only use restraint or seclusion in an emergency situation when a student's at risk of hurting himself or others. So to be honest with you, last year in our in-district classroom, we didn't have one restraint or seclusion.
Okay. And okay, so that's good news. I think the biggest fear for parents is kind of they want to know what kind of students they're going to get, but BD is kind of a giant umbrella. It covers so many people. Well,
yeah, I think the important thing to sort of go back to the beginning of identifying some of the policies, procedures, protocols, a lot of what we had to iron out in the beginning is really identifying what student would be best to attend that program. And what we used it as we used it in New London, just to let you know, in terms of the district, New London, Connecticut. What we did there was that we used it as a bridge program because we had our day program there for students that necessitated that more restrictive environment. This was sort of a transitional classroom where the student would be not necessarily meeting the level of restriction of an out-of-district placement and wasn't going to be successful, mainstreamed either. So it was sort of the classroom where they were in the high school, could earn to access some of the classes, but they kind of stayed self-contained within their own high school. So we had to really identify what types of behaviors would warrant a student in that program, and then what would warrant a more restrictive environment, or what types of successes would we be looking for in order for them to go and be able to mainstream.
Okay.
So I think just identifying the levels of care and the profiles, and you're never really going to get it black and white. There's always going to be that gray, and that's what's great about special education, is that things are individualized. But I think sort of looking at things in a certain way, like, a student that, and it all depends on what you guys want. We're opening an in-district program in another district in Connecticut this coming school year, and it's not a bridge program. It's them wanting to run truly their own program for behavioral students that typically would be in an out-of-district placement. So they are going to be kids that are going to get into emergency situations. Reading files, you can read about aggressiveness and, those types of things that we're well aware that that's what they're going to present with. But those that we served in New London this past school year didn't necessarily present those behaviors because it was sort of more of a bridge concept.
Okay. So
I'd say to identify, the objectives of what you're looking to accomplish, and then hopefully that would streamline a little bit more of the profile of what you're looking for.
Okay. So is the program you do high school?
In New London, we had a high school. This year, we're adding in another school district, a middle school and a high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one we're doing is, from what I understand, kindergarten through 5th grade.
Okay, yeah. The districts that we're doing the middle school and high school with, they anticipate to potentially need to go and open an elementary one by January as well.
Okay. Can you think of any differences in serving those age groups that we should be, things we should consider?
No, I would say the accessibility to the playground. I mean, you're going to have age-appropriate needs in terms of recess, playground time, gym time, those types of things that you're probably not extending to high school students,
Yeah.
So just doing the schedule that way. Just to let you know as well, most of our in-district classrooms, we operate them at different operational times when the regular students arrive and leave, so that it also is a little bit easier to curtail them to the appropriate location and not have them, off-site.
Mm-hmm.
So their school day is staggered from everyone else's.
So they're more segregated.
Yes, correct. Each of our locations also have a separate entrance.
Okay.
A dedicated entrance where the bus drops them off. So that's really helpful.
Okay.
Trying to think. I'm sorry. I'm trying to brainstorm everything I can sort of give you in a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, did you have any other specific questions? I'm sure as it all shakes out, you'll kind of think of some in due time.
Well, I think the one question, kind of the elephant in the room, is violent behaviors.
Yeah.
how do you handle it in your situation? Are there protocols in place for having them students who do exhibit violent behaviors? How do you decide whether to transfer them to a different program, maybe a standalone organization or something? How do you handle violence in that situation?
Well, I think there are two different models. That's why I was saying I think your district is going to have to identify what purpose this classroom is going to serve. Is it going to be your district's attempt to more or less service this population and not need the out-of-district placements, or is this going to be a transitional location for those that are in out-of-district placements, are successful in that more restrictive environment, but don't quite meet the demands or profile of a student needing to be mainstream. So we have districts that have both needs. And so, in New London, we didn't have to deal with violence much, but our parameters around that, because it was a bridge program, was that the student couldn't require hands-on at all from staff more than twice in a month. We didn't end up needing anything, as I stated. We didn't have any restraints or seclusion.
Yeah.
But we put those parameters in place. So now the other district that we're going into for this coming school year, I think things are looking very different. The profile of the student is very different, and it's more consistent with what we would see in our out-of-district placement. So in terms of violence there, we're anticipating to need to go into restraint should the emergency situation arise, and placing them in seclusion and following our typical protocols that we would for our out-of-district schools, So I think it all depends on what your district's looking to get out of the program,
okay.
In terms of identified levels of care.
Okay. I guess I just have one more question, and this is kind of more, the stigma. You're familiar with the stigma, obviously. The fear people have when they don't know people with behavior disabilities.
Yep.
So our parents need reassurance, and they definitely need education on what BD means. So I guess, what would you say to a parent who's concerned, who's afraid that their own child will be in danger, or at the worst, or at the very least, distracted by students with behavioral disorders, say in the hallways as they're walking by classrooms? What would you say to them as they're considering a program like that coming to our school?
Well, I definitely think educating them on the behavioral disorders, and possibly even giving them access to even celebrities or famous personnel that people know that have struggled with these types of obstacles in their lives, because there are people that are everyday people and very successful that no one would actually even realize had these types of struggles. So I think just educating them and explaining to them as school administration that you are still dedicated to every student's well-being and safety, as are all of us, across America as educators and school administrators, and that you're going to take the appropriate precautions, but it's also going to take a certain level of trust, and that if too their son or daughter was having the same struggles in life, that they would want them to be able to access the same opportunities as their friends. Mm-hmm. So I think just the education, just as you had stated, is the number one thing, and then I think building that awareness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
actually, I thought of one more question. Sorry. What would you say are the mandatory minimum trainings that you would expect the staff to have? Like, what is a must-have for the teachers and the aides in that classroom?
Definitely some sort of extensive verbal de-escalation, crisis intervention training, for sure. We run a very specific academic program and a very structured behavior management program. So we have to train a lot on both of those because they're both staples that help our students be successful. Our academic model is that similar to a workstation model, which really helps students move about the room and get different teaching modalities, which really helps. Our behavior management system, as I had said, is very structured, very research-driven, so we spend a lot of time training the staff on that so that it's implemented pretty consistently. It's modeled after a token economy, comes with a lot of positive reinforcements, privileges, and rewards. So we spend an exorbitant amount of time on that. And then from there, we typically, because as you know, if a student can't be safe and learn, then you can have the greatest lesson plans in the world and it doesn't really matter. But so from there, we dive into more of our curriculum trainings, and go into more of the instructional from there. But I would say definitely verbal de-escalation. They're going to need a structured behavior management system. If they don't have it, they're going to need it. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to
Look,
speak with me.
I wish we would have known you needed it.
Well, for sure, and there is still a chance. I mean, the question in my mind is Sequel the right company? Obviously our school district is interested, and I'm definitely going to keep SESI in mind. I will be providing a copy of this recording to the superintendent to let her, hear other perspectives on this. And so, if things don't work out with Sequel, it may work out we may contact SESI. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, that's why I was just thinking. That's why I said to you, a lot of the answers is going to be contingent upon, really the model of what they're going to run.
Yeah. So hopefully, I'm planning to. Hopefully, I'll be able to speak with Sequel in the coming days, and be able to try and suss out what.
So have you been tasked with sort of weeding through everything, more or less?
I'm just a parent who was seeing a lot of the reaction on social media from other parents that was hyperbolic and really overreacting. Wow. And I've had a history of, I worked with developmentally disabled adults for a couple of years, so I'm familiar with mental health services, and I think the demonizing and the stigma is really harmful right now. So I'm hoping to provide kind of a middle ground view on what's going on.
Well, good for you. That's so awesome that you're doing that, even just for your own purposes.
Yeah,
awesome.
I've got 2 girls in the school, so I want to know, that they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I also understand that we need these services. Every school district needs them. So.
Yeah, it's done nothing but really great things for each school district that's added it, I have to tell you, even here in Connecticut. I do think it's the wave of the future, just because I do think the students also get to access things in their own community.
Yeah.
You have to think when they get outplaced, they're not always in their own town, but yet they're going to come back and integrate with your town.
Yeah,
so you might as well teach them how to access things and be appropriate while they can be in your town.
And at the same time, teach the students, the traditional students, how that there's a diversity of mental issues out there, and you are going to have to encounter them. And my own daughter has been in a class with a kid who has autism, and I can't even tell you how valuable it's been to have her learn to interact with him. So I definitely see a huge value in this. I just wish we could deal with the facts and the issues rather than the fear and the speculation.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, any questions you have along the way, you now have my cell phone number and my name, so feel free to give me a shout back or pass it along to the district person, and I'm happy to answer anything I can.
Okay, thank you so much, Brooke.
Okay,
Have a good
thank
one.
you.
Thank you, bye.
Bye-bye.